Hey besties, it's Nat, back again with another video, and I have a question for all of you. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to visit the Animal Crossing Museum in real life? To hear the gentle echo of tiny footsteps on marble floors as you run circles around an unconscious Blathers, take in the smell of Brewster's coffee, or bask in the faint blue glow of the giant fish tank, pondering when exactly you'll catch the barrel eye. Today, besties, we'll be answering that question as I take you along with me to visit the Animal Crossing Aquarium tour stop at the Georgia Aquarium in my attempts to document the event to the fullest and then recreate it again in Animal Crossing. So it'll be like a double Animal Crossing museum. Blathers Inception, if you will, but without the coffee, and you have to wear shoes. That's right, besties. Back in August, I had the opportunity to visit the Animal Crossing New Horizons Aquarium tour stop at the Georgia Aquarium, not once, but twice. And today, I'm going to be taking you along with me through footage I captured at the event and by rebuilding it all in Happy Home Paradise. The event added a bunch of Animal Crossing theming all throughout the aquarium with Blathers and all the catchable fish from the Critterpedia, Animal Crossing merch at the gift shop, and even a meet and greet. And today, I'm going to be reviewing all of it while we build CJ and Flick their own little aquarium in Happy Home Paradise. Now, if you're watching this around the time it goes up in November of 2024, there are two event stops left on the tour. One in Kansas City that goes until mid-December, and one in Chattanooga, Tennessee that goes until the end of February. So if you're planning on attending the event yourself, hopefully this can give y'all an idea of what to expect. And if you aren't able to make it to the Animal Crossing Aquarium tour, this video is going to catch you up on everything you missed. And this speed build of CJ's mini Georgia Aquarium will be available to tour in game at my HHP creator code, also in the description. There will be timestamps as well, so you can jump around between the review portions and the speed build portions. And of course, if you want more Animal Crossing goodness in your YouTube sub box and you feel so inclined, you can subscribe down below and hit the bell to be notified every time I post or go live. It's absolutely free. The only price you have to pay is listening to me talk. And now with that all out of the way, you know what to do, besties. Grab yourself a snack, grab yourself something to drink, grab your roommate, and let's get right into it. All right, besties, before we get the build started, I just want to say, when I was planning this whole thing out, I had no idea that CJ invites Flick to live with him when you scan his amiibo in HHP. I ordered just CJ's amiibo, but if you only have one amiibo of them, the other one shows up to be roommates automatically, which is so adorable. I was gagged. Anyways, speaking of the build, as I mentioned, this video is going to be half speed build, half event review. However, I'll have to ask you to forgive me in advance. I am not a vlogger, so my filming skills are not the best, and I had to use my backup tripod. It was a whole thing. Anyways, hopefully I can edit this into something that is watchable and informative. And I'm going to cut away to the footage when it's relevant, so you won't be missing any of the speed build during those parts. Second thing, I do actually want this video to be informative if you decide to go visit on the last few legs of the tour yourself. I did want to get this video out earlier, but unfortunately life stuff got in the way, and by life stuff I mean that there were bees living in my walls again. So if you want to learn more about that, you can check out this video in the card. Hopefully, though, for all my Tennessee and Missouri besties, this can give you an idea of what to look forward to. And for those of you who already went to the event in your city, maybe, let us know what it was like in the comments. Let me know if you had a similar experience to me, if your aquarium did a little different. Leave a comment down below. I'd love to read about that. And of course, for those of you who sadly could not make it to the event, this build is available to tour in HHP, so you can come hang out with Flick and CJ and see all the fish and take some cute photos. And if you're Nintendo watching this video, hi, nice to meet you. I'm Nat, and I have some suggestions for your event in the future, because you should do the event again. It was a lot of fun, and based on the crowds, very successful. But I think we can make some changes to make it a little bit better. So we'll get to that a little later. But for now, I'll explain my idea for the speed build, and I'll have a timestamp in the description for when the actual event review starts, okay? Okay, so my main objective for the bottom floor of the house was to somewhat recreate my experience at the Georgia Aquarium, Animal Crossing Aquarium Tour, with very specific details to that aquarium and to the version of the event that I experienced. But for the rest of the build, I had a little bit more freedom, so to speak, making the upstairs into more of an aquarium recreation, like adding more sections. But when I found out about Flick, I kind of had to make it into a little apartment for the two of them. I couldn't help myself. So think of this as like an offshoot of the main Animal Crossing museum, or perhaps like another another arm of the Faraway Museum from GameCube. This is sort of like CJ's private collection, and maybe it's only open certain times of the year when the boys decide to like take a little vacation. Anyways, the outside part was where I got to be the most creative. So I ended up going with this style of house I don't normally use because I really liked the blue and green color on the outside. I feel like even though Flick is red and he loves black, I associate the color green with bugs and the color blue with like fish and water. So it felt like a good balance between the two of them, especially because I knew it was going to be mostly CJ's build inside, not Flick's. Sorry, buddy. But I did give them both their individual areas upstairs in the apartment and outdoors. So out here in the yard, we have some sand dunes, much like on my first island, Nautilus, and some pine trees that I incorporated from the surroundings. And I just tried to add as many details and references to bugs and fish as I could. We're gonna have a little museum sign and a little walkway up to the front door. And then on the left side, down by the beach, we're gonna have CJ's fishing spot with a fishing rod and a bucket and the fish drying rack. I also tried my best to incorporate as many of the bug off and fishing tourney items as I could into the build, and I ended up putting CJ's fish cooler upstairs, but we had space on the right side of the build out here to put Flick's bug cage. His area is like a little research area, so he has the bug cage like I mentioned, and a little craft table and a stool, and he has a bunch of notes and a little cricket that he's studying. And then down on the bottom right corner of the beach, I'm going to put a little campfire for the two of them to hang out at, which I think turned out pretty cute. I will say, once I decided on the size of the house, I ended up with not a lot of room outside to decorate, which is good. Like, I want to focus on the inside for this build, but once I added in the sand dunes, I had to get creative, let's say, with the amount of space. But I think their little work areas turned out pretty cute, and I think they both suit both them and the build. Now, my technique for the sand dunes here was pretty much the same as for my volleyball court on Nautilus. I basically try to offset them and layer them so they look more random and less neat instead of like an actual wheat field, which is what they're supposed to be. But if you're trying to decorate your beaches and you want to get that sort of seagrass, sand dune type of look, try to stagger the wheat fields and also add in other items like logs, log stakes, rocks, even actual weeds you plant into the ground. That will really help them blend in and look much more natural. And you can also check out my beach decorating playlist for more tips on decorating your beaches, including making sand dunes and other stuff, so I'll make sure to link that as well. Another fun thing I did with this build was I set it in winter instead of spring or summer or even autumn, which was my original plan. Now, I have mentioned this before, besties, but I am a little bit of a Scrooge. I'm not a huge fan of Christmas. However, it is getting to be about that time, so I figured I'd do at least a few wintry builds, which I do enjoy somewhat, so hopefully that will satisfy all the Christmas fans watching, so we can have a little truce this year, besties. It's okay. But I thought it might be nice to experiment with the weather a little bit too, since I had so much more freedom decorating the outside than the inside, which is supposed to be a recreation of a real life place. I did also give myself some room to improvise in the upstairs too, but I also wanted it to fit the vibe that I established down here in the outdoor area. Basically, if this is like a snowy, wintry beach on the Atlantic Ocean, then I wanted the inside to sort of look like the type of place you would find there, but still have touches of Flick and CJ. So it's basically their vacation home, which is sort of the point anyways. But all that to say, I used the same white wooden wallpaper that I use in every build, except this time I added a bunch of decorations that match Flick and CJ. So that's what you can expect in the upstairs. Now that all that speed build talk is out of the way, let's get to the main event inside, my mini recreation of the Georgia Aquarium Animal Crossing event. Now, I'll start this review off by saying this is not my first rodeo at the Georgia Aquarium. I'm a frequent visitor, in fact. So I had a pretty good idea of what it was going to be like in the event, but I had no idea how exactly they were going to Animal Crossing-ify all of it. That's what I was curious about. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, I visited the museum twice during the event. The first time was on September 8th, which was a non-meet and greet day, and the second time was on the 14th, which was a meet and greet day. I also got to visit with my lovely mods, Chloe and Bree, who you'll see throughout the footage, as well as many aquarium patrons. I'll try not to show too much of strangers' faces in these clips, but the aquarium was extremely crowded both times we visited, especially on the meet and greet day, so I'll be editing around children's faces as much as I can, but there will be people in the video, and I can't really help that. Hello, people. I hope you had a fun time at the aquarium. I sure did. Now, the main difference between the 2 days that I visited was, of course, the meet and greet aspect, and that significantly changed the overall vibe of the experience, mainly the crowds. But I'm honestly glad that my first time going was on a non-meet and greet day, because there were a lot less people, even with a weekend crowd, and I I got the chance to understand and document the other parts of the event that were available all the time, not just when KK was there. So on my first trip with Chloe, we planned to arrive around opening, which was a good call because it was a Sunday. So we got the aquarium mostly to ourselves until around noon or 1-ish. Also because I forgot my mask that day and I got very nervous when it got crowded. Didn't make that mistake the second time though, which is good because it was very crowded the second time. Now, I know my way around the place pretty well, but I did stop by the information desk first thing just to ask about the event, and they didn't have a ton of info for me, but they pointed us towards an area set up by one of the gift shops that was like the main event area at the aquarium. They had a little queue set up for the meet and greet with a very cute backdrop. We did take some pictures with the backdrop even though KK wasn't there. And then the gift shop next door was where they had all the Animal Crossing merch, which is the first thing I want to discuss and the first bone I have to pick with this event. Now, I understand this is the first time they've taken this tour out of Seattle, so they wouldn't want to go overboard making merch or other expenses like that, but the selection was really lackluster, even for my already low expectations. There was no official event merch, and like I said, I wasn't expecting like Georgia Aquarium branding or anything, but there was nothing related to the tour at all. No t-shirts, no stickers, no keychains, nothing with tour branding. The main items they had were the Lego sets, which were also disappointing because they only included the first wave of Legos. So they had like Nook's Cranny and Isabel's house, but not the town hall, which features KK, mind you, who is the meet and greet guest. Besides that, they had some more non-exclusive merch that was way overpriced. All the plushies I saw were ones I've seen at Target for half the price. They also had generic Animal Crossing t-shirts that were mostly sized for kids. They had Pez dispensers, and I kind of wish I'd picked up the Isabel one, but honestly, that was about it. The only merch I saw that was brand new to me that I hadn't seen at other retailers were these silly character hats. They had Tom Nook and KK Slider, and they were $30 each, which is crazy. And on that first trip, I spent all day dunking on the hats and saying how silly they were and how overpriced they were. But sadly, by the end of the day, I did cave and buy a hat. To be fair to me though, I am an Animal Crossing YouTuber, so the hat holds a lot more utility for me than it does to the average person who doesn't get on live stream and play Animal Crossing. And I did end up wearing it to my photo shoot with KK, so it wasn't a total waste. That being said, I'm glad I bought it when I did, because when I came back for the meet and greet day, they were out of a ton of stuff, including the KK hats. So there was clearly a demand from fans for interesting merch that was at least somewhat unique to the aquarium, if not the Georgia Aquarium, then just the aquarium event itself. And it's disappointing that they didn't have more stuff to meet that demand. Now, we've already mentioned the photo shoot area, which I'll talk about more on my second visit, but the next spot we stopped at was the My Nintendo kiosk right next to it, which was sort of like the hub of the event. Now, I'm not sure which footage I'll end up using for this part. Some things I did a better job capturing on the second weekend, so I might jump back and forth a little just for explanations purposes. Anyways, you check into the event with your Nintendo account by scanning the QR code at the kiosk, and it gives you points on your account, and the kiosk was set up next to this big event sign announcing what's going on. Then throughout the kids touch tank area, which is right next door to where all of this stuff is, there were little standees of different characters like Isabel and Blathers and even Pascal, and we tried to get photos with as many of them as we could, but of course there were children running around everywhere with wet hands, which, you know, is totally fine. This is their space, and it was extremely cute seeing all these little babies recognizing the Animal Crossing characters and like running up to them knowing their names. It's still so surreal to me that Animal Crossing has become this like globally known thing. It feels like not too long ago it was much more niche, like Pikmin or even Splatoon, where maybe a certain age group of Nintendo fans knows about it, but not like Pikachu or Mario, who are household names. I guess it was just nice to see the characters get recognized so much, and people who clearly came for the regular aquarium experience seemed pleasantly surprised by the inclusion of all the Animal Crossing references, and I will say I am glad it wasn't too intrusive to regular visitors, at least on non-meet and greet days. I did consider adding a touch tank area to the actual build, but I ended up not having space for it, so I decided to focus on recreating the main attraction, which is the integration into the exhibits. Now, much like with the gift shop, I also have my issues with how they chose to handle this part, but let me explain it first. Basically, throughout the aquarium, they put up these placards with photos of fish from the Critterpedia, and there's some text from Blathers explaining fun facts about the animal, just like in the games. And I believe the dialogue on the placards is ripped straight from New Horizons, which is a lot of fun. Though I will say, one of my gripes with the game unlike the aquarium, is that the in-game museum doesn't have placards, except in the art exhibit. And I really wish they'd patch that in because it's so annoying how the only way to learn about the animals you find is to actually bring them to Blathers so he can talk about them, especially the rare ones. I'm looking at you, Barrel Eye. Anyways, they have these placards all throughout the aquarium exhibits, and something else really fun about them is that at the bottom of the placards, they have a fun fact about the animal from the aquarium staff. And I'm not sure if this is specifically Georgia aquarium staff or if it's the same across the whole tour and it's from the Seattle aquarium staff. Either way, great addition. It makes it feel like I'm getting something new out of reading them, even though it's in-game dialogue. Anyways, throughout both my trips, I managed to catalog almost all of the animals that had placards, and they were the moray eel, the moon jelly, the butterfly fish, the scallop, the mantis shrimp, the angelfish, the spotted garden eel, the spiny lobster, the spider crab, the regular lobster, the seahorse, the slate pencil urchin, the sea cucumber, the rainbow fish, the bluegill, the salmon, the sturgeon, the arowana, the soft-shelled turtle, the snapping turtle, the catfish, the gar, the piranha, the hammerhead shark, the whale shark, and the ray. And also the sea bass, which I never actually found, but we're going to talk about that in a second. Like I said, I have a bone to pick with how they set up this part of the exhibit, but I did really like the design of the placards themselves. They were very cute and on theme, and I did have a lot of fun sort of doing a little scavenger hunt for them, though there will be more on that later. Because on my first trip, I was kind of disappointed that there were no QR codes or other interactive elements to them, but they're really fun to look out for. And we're going to jump back to the build for a second, because this is where I really tried to replicate the aquarium experience the most. I downloaded this cute custom designed museum placard, which I'll just pop right here if you want to check it out. I liked how it has Blathers on it, and I also tried to specifically select animals that actually were at the Georgia Aquarium to try and replicate the experience as much as possible. I also went with very dark walls and floors to try to mimic the Ocean Voyager exhibit specifically, which is the big tank where they keep the whale sharks, though I used fish and sea creatures from all the exhibits for my little display area, and we're going to have a big wall in the back with some seating to mimic the actual Ocean Voyager big tank viewing area. I'm sorry, I just typed the words viewing area into the script and the first thing I thought of was Raymond. But anyways, back to the build. Those were my inspirations for this downstairs aquarium recreation. I figured the big tank is the most iconic element of the Georgia Aquarium because of the whale sharks, so I thought it would be the best part to build in Animal Crossing. And in lieu of an actual touch tank area, I'm going to make a little kids research area on the right-hand corner by the entrance, just because I thought it would be fun to incorporate some different elements, including some fossils of ancient sea creatures. Now, back to complaining about these damn placards. My first big gripe with them is how they were placed. They were all over the place, and not in a good way. Now, some of them were directly next to the tank that had the animal in it, like the spotted garden eel, or the piranha, or the catfish and the gar, which were in the same tank. But a lot of the placards were in the wrong place. Some of them were frustratingly close to where they should have been, like the moon jelly, which was one room over from where it was supposed to be. Pause, editing Nat here. I meant to say the angelfish was on the other side of the room from its placard, not the moon jelly. Apologies. Let's get on with the complaining. And then some of them were wrong in confusing ways, like the fact that the seahorse placard was next to the leafy sea dragon, but across from it was the actual seahorse tank. And then some of them were completely inexplicable, like the spiny lobster, which was next to the dolphin tank. Now, I could be way off base about this. There could very well be spiny lobsters at the bottom of that tank, but they're certainly not what people are looking for when they're at the dolphin exhibit. Now, I understand the aquarium already has placards that explain the animals, and they don't need to prioritize these silly limited time only Animal Crossing placards, but it just felt so haphazard and low effort. Like, they went to the effort of putting them up. Why couldn't they put them next to the right animals? And I understand if they were low on space, but then why would they put a different placard up in the same spot? Like, it just makes no sense. And in the case of the seahorse placard, it's actively confusing to people who may be reading it, especially to kids. And speaking of kids, another gripe that I had with them was the fact that a lot of them were at eye level for an adult and not a kid, which I saw multiple times while we were at the aquarium, parents lifting their kids up so they could read the placards. And I understand the language in Animal Crossing is definitely like elementary school and above. Like, it's not the type of thing that a preschooler would be reading, but elementary schoolers are still short, and I feel like it would have been nice if they were catered to a little bit more with this event, especially considering how many of them were there for Animal Crossing and recognized the characters. Like, if they had the sense to put up all of those standees in the kids' touch tank area, you'd think they'd keep that in mind while they were hanging the signs up. Okay, that's enough complaining about the placards for now. We'll get back to them when we talk about my second trip. But despite all that complaining I just did, I had a lot of fun on this first trip. And honestly, if you're able to, I recommend going to the aquarium on a non-meet and greet day just to explore and see Blathers and see Gulliver, who we're going to get to in a minute. It was just genuinely nice to see everything without the huge Animal Crossing crowds coming for the meet and greet. And I had a lot of fun with my friends, some of whom hadn't been to the Georgia Aquarium before, so I got to experience it all for the first time with them. I also recommend coming early if you can, just to avoid crowds. The Georgia Aquarium is particularly crowded compared to other aquariums on account of how big it is, but the event still draws a lot of people. And if you're going on a weekend especially, and especially on a meet and greet day, it's just nice to spend some time in the exhibits when they're a little more peaceful. It'll also give you more time to spend with Gulliver, who is the other big draw for Animal Crossing fans. Now, our hidden castaway was in the River Scout exhibit in a big tank with a bunch of fish, and he's actually a huge plushie, which surprised me considering how damp he must get in there. Part of me wishes there were more Animal Crossing integrations throughout the exhibits, like maybe CJ going fishing, or Pascal near the otters, or maybe even Captain's boat. It was just so cute to turn the corner and see him asleep on a rock inside one of the fish tanks. I can definitely see though how that could be more disruptive to other visitors who aren't there for Animal Crossing, and more importantly how it could be disruptive to the animals. But I guess it's sort of how I feel about the placards, in that I just wish there was a little more care in how they place the references around the aquarium. Like, having the Pascal standee near the otters would have been super cute, and they way missed out on having Gulliver merch. Like, selling a smaller version of the plushie of him in the gift shop, huge missed opportunity. But like I said, I had a lot of fun, and I did go back and buy that stupid hat to wear on my second trip, and then I went and saw Mitski, and that was also really cool. But then, cut to a week later, and my mod Bree is visiting, and we're going to meet KK, and I was so excited. I did a full face of makeup this time, and I even wore my little Nooks Needles Co. Roost sweater. I was ready to go, besties. Now, once again, I arrived around opening because I knew there would be long lines for the meet and greet. I certainly could not have anticipated how long the lines would get, but that'll come up a little later. They had KK come out for 20-minute time slots, I believe every hour, starting a few hours after opening and going until the middle of the afternoon. And the actual meet and greet itself only happened twice throughout the entire month-long event, so I'd recommend checking your own aquarium's website for exact information about that before you book your trip, just to make sure you're coming on the right day for the actual meet and greet element of the event. Now, the guest for the Georgia Aquarium tour stop was KK Slider. I know when the event was back in Seattle, they had Blathers as a guest, but I'm not sure if they mixed it up at the other aquariums and had different characters, so let me know down below how your meet and greet was in your city if you had the opportunity to go. Anyways, for the first round of the photo shoot, I was on my own. Bree hadn't arrived yet, and the line got fairly long pretty quickly. It was wrapping all the way through the queue past the gift shop, even on the first time slot, and this was probably the shortest it was the entire day. But I wanted to try it out first just to know what to expect before Bree arrived, and also because I get nervous having my picture taken, and I wanted a little test run first to make sure I didn't look super awkward or weird or anything. I will say though, even though the lines got extremely long, they were very fast and efficient getting people in and out, and they were somewhat lenient about the time slot, though they did eventually cut off the line later in the day just to make sure the KK performer got their break time. They did also have an employee at the front of the line to take your picture if you didn't come with someone else, and they had a limit on the number of pictures you could take just to keep the line moving. All in all, the organization was pretty good, even if the crowds ended up being very overwhelming. I will say though, if you have photo anxiety like I do, definitely come early. You're gonna want more than one shot at getting a photo, whether it's by yourself or with a friend. And speaking of friends, after my first attempt at getting my photo with my doppelganger, I headed to the newly built cafe area and had a delicious and very large churro underneath a whale skeleton, which was pretty cool. And another reason why I wanted to include that little fossil area in the corner. But after that, I met up with the bestie Bree, my mod and wonderful dear friend, and we got back in the even longer line so she could get her KK photo. Now, by around 1 p.m., the line was from the photo op area by the touch tanks all the way to the entrance of the aquarium, which, if you've been to the Georgia Aquarium before, you know is very long. And they were cutting off the line to make sure the session ended on time. So once again, I can't stress this enough, come early if you can, and be prepared to stand in a line for a good chunk of your trip. Each session only lasts around 20 minutes, but the line starts forming way before that. So we probably spent a good hour total of our trip just standing in line. Once again, this wasn't too much of an issue as it was very clear when the line was moving that it was moving quickly. And Bree and I also have been to the aquarium before and weren't also trying to see all the exhibits, so we could just focus on seeing KK. But if you're trying to make a day of it and enjoy the Animal Crossing event to the fullest, just be aware of what you're getting into and schedule accordingly. Now, I will say, I am glad I went for another round of photos just because my second ones came out way better than my first ones, and I had Bree to record B-roll footage for me. This is a very professional operation here, besties. Anyways, here I am meeting a celebrity, the pop star of our generation, KK Slider. I was a bit starstruck, I must say, besties. But after we got our photos, we decided to hit up the kiosk again and explore the Animal Crossing elements of the exhibits so Bree could experience them too. And this is where I have my other huge gripe with the placards. But before we get into that, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the build one more time as we finish it up. Thank you so much for making it this far into the video. I really appreciate it, and I hope you've gotten something out of it. Whether you've been to the event yourself, or are planning on going, or just wanted to know the tea about the tour. I appreciate you for being here with me, and with CJ, and with Flick. And speaking of those two, we are finally working on their little apartment area. Isn't it so cute? Anyways, like I said at the beginning of the video, I wanted it to feel like their little New England vacation cottage up here. So we do have the white shiplap walls and the wooden floors, but I also wanted it to feel very them. So I picked a lot of bachelor pad-like furniture, even though they are of course not bachelors. They are in fact in a committed relationship. But I wanted to have the color scheme match their personalities as though they decorated a pre-built space themselves. And I paid extra attention to that on the upper left-hand corner of the build, where I made their little joint office area. We're gonna have a little live stream set up for CJ with the gamer desk, and we're gonna have a little sculpting area for Flick with the craft table and the sculpting clay, along with some bug models and an ant under a cup. And I even included their respective photos in different parts of the house, which is extra cute because it was the only required items in their little item requirement section of the catalog. Absolutely adorable. But I put Flick's photo on the dresser next to the bed for CJ to look at, and I put CJ's photo on the wall above Flick's desk for him to look at while he works. And I just think it turned out so cute. I'm obsessed with them. And we even have a little two-person dining table for them to eat at. It's just so cute. I can't stand it, honestly. We also made sure to include the bug poster that I missed out on including downstairs in the aquarium, as well as some music-related items for Flick, and of course CJ's fish cooler next to his gamer setup. Though I did also end up putting store-bought fish in the kitchen, which, you know, might be a little sacrilegious, but we're just gonna ignore that because I liked the colors of it better than the whole fish on the cutting board, so that's what I went with. But I did miss out on pointing out the whale shark model that I included in the downstairs area. Now, as I mentioned before, the whale shark is like the signature attraction of the Georgia Aquarium. They're huge and they're super cool, and I did end up including one next to the big tank. Unfortunately, I could not put him in the wallpaper, but I did put one next to the fake big tank display, sort of like it is in the actual aquarium, and I have that model, of course, that Flick lovingly made by hand just for me, and I thought I'd mention that since we were shouting out Flick's little sculpting area up here. But anyways, back to these damn placards that I keep bringing up. I'm so sorry, I just keep complaining about them, but I want this exhibit to be great. And Nintendo, I know you're still watching, bestie. Thank you for being here this entire time. But I think with just a few tweaks this could be really excellent. So we'll get into my last issue I had with them now. Now, as I mentioned before, I was a little confused by the placards on my first visit because I didn't see any interactivity with them. They had no QR codes you could scan, and of course, when I went to the information desk on my first visit, they just directed me to the My Nintendo kiosk by the photo area. But what I missed on my first trip that I noticed on my second trip was that way on the back wall, behind all the other stuff like the kiosk and the big event sign, was a small poster of Blathers that did have a QR code. And if you scanned that QR code, it led to a checklist on the Nintendo website for all the placards in the aquarium. And that's how I know there should have been a placard for the sea bass, even though I didn't find it, because it was included on the checklist. Now, besties, keep in mind, this sign was so out of the way that I only noticed it on my second trip. The actual checklist itself was fine. It was just a bunch of checkboxes. It was organized by exhibit, which was nice, so you could make sure you saw everything before you left each area, but it was just so disappointing that it was so out of the way that it was essentially hidden from me on my first visit. Okay, editing that here again, I just wanted to let y'all know that I am not crazy, and that in between my two visits, which mind you were like a week apart, they moved the moon jelly sign from right next to the moon jellies to in a completely different room. So like, I'm not crazy. They moved the sign. Why did they do that? And the checklist doesn't save your progress or anything, so if it opens on your phone's browser and the window reloads, you have to check everything off again, which eventually got too annoying to keep up with. And at that point, I'd already cataloged most of the placards on my first trip, so eventually Brie and I just sort of gave up on the actual scavenger hunt they had set up. And this gets to my main problem with the event, which is that I wish they took more elements from the original Seattle version. Now, keep in mind, this is from the perspective of someone who didn't go to that event, so this is all stuff that I gleaned from the Seattle Aquarium's website, but at their version of the Animal Crossing installation, which lasted much longer than a couple weeks, they had physical pieces of paper you could use for the scavenger hunt. And I know that because I can see them in these people's hands right there. There they are. And it also says that there was some sort of stamp rally element, like in the actual game, so presumably people were also collecting stamps from the aquarium employees. Now, it's understandable how something as complicated as the stamp rally couldn't happen every day of the tour, but it would have been so cool just to have that physical element of a piece of paper and a pencil to cross off my scavenger hunt checklist instead of a QR code hidden in a corner that no one told me about. And once again, keeping kids in mind, a lot of younger kids don't have their own smartphone, so they'd have to be keeping the checklist on their parents' smartphone, which is another consideration that they didn't make. That's actually why I went to the information desk on my first trip, because I thought they would have something like that to hand out to people. I do want to make it very clear, none of this is a knock on the Georgia Aquarium employees or the employees at any other aquarium who hosted this tour. They were incredibly nice and organized, and I was able to ask them multiple questions inside the exhibits about the animals, and they gave really great answers. They did a really great job with the event and handling the huge crowds and making the aquarium experience really fun. My criticism lies with Nintendo for how conservative they decided to be for this first run of the tour. Like I said, I understand they wouldn't want to go all in making merchandise and setting up a bunch of aquarium displays with Animal Crossing characters, but is a piece of paper too much to ask for? I don't know. Those are just my thoughts on the experience. I think the best part of it was just seeing people engaged and interested with the animals. I've heard so many people talk about how they learned about different fish or bugs or fossils or paintings by playing Animal Crossing, and being able to take that knowledge into real life and see those things in person is really special. If anything, the event succeeded at capturing some of the wonder of Animal Crossing and bringing it out into our everyday lives, and that's definitely something to be proud of. And it even showed on the faces of all the people excited to see KK or Gulliver, or the little cardboard cutouts of Isabelle and Tom Nook, and all the people wearing cosplays or merch or silly hats. It was just really fun as a lifelong fan of these games since GameCube to be able to see that manifest for the first time in real life. And for anyone else watching who feels the same way about Animal Crossing as I do, then I definitely recommend checking this event out if you can. But just to wrap everything up, do I recommend the Animal Crossing Aquarium Tour? Yes, with some caveats. First of all, come early, especially if you're coming on a meet and greet day. And if you're a huge Animal Crossing fan, you're gonna want to come on a meet and greet day. Second, keep your expectations low outside of the meet and greet. The merch is pretty lackluster and not worth the price, so maybe buy one piece of merch to commemorate your trip, but if you're gonna stock up on plushies, just go to Target instead. Make sure to scan both the code at the My Nintendo kiosk and the code for the scavenger hunt. They are separate and they do different things. Keep an eye out for Gulliver and the different information placards. And finally, just remember to be respectful of the aquarium employees, the animals, and the other patrons of the aquarium, especially the littlest ones. They deserve to have just as much fun as us Animal Crossing freaks are having, even if they don't know why there's a stuffed bird stranded inside one of the fish tanks. And that is going to be it from me. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this sort of comprehensive look at the event. It was a lot of fun visiting with my friends and getting to experience all these familiar exhibits in a new way. And it felt really validating as an Animal Crossing fan to see the museum experience recreated like this in real life. And Nintendo, if you're still watching, bestie, I hope you take some notes. And I also really hope you do this tour again, because it was a lot of fun. And at my aquarium, at least, it drew huge crowds. So the people are definitely here for the Animal Crossing goodness. Though I will say, even if KK Slider won't be there, it's definitely worth it just to go on a visit to your local aquarium. And there's a lot of very smart people there taking care of some really cool, cute, and interesting animals, even without Blathers to guide you. So if you have the time, even if there's no Animal Crossing event happening, give your local aquarium some love. I'm sure they'll appreciate it. But thank you all again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and this build, and let me know what your experience at the Animal Crossing aquarium tour was like in the comments down below. And if you didn't go, would you want to go if they decided to tour the event again? Also, as I mentioned previously, I will have my HHP creator code in the description so you can come check out this build yourself and take pictures, and feel free to tag me in them on Instagram or post them on my Discord, both of which are also in the description. Make sure to leave a like on this video if you liked it. It really helps me out. And if you really like this video, you can subscribe and hit the little bell to be notified every time I post or go live. Right now, I'm working on my second ever Animal Crossing island, Tokyo 3, which is a post-apocalyptic city core island. I also have a ton of videos of my previous island, Nautilus, and I've also been playing a lot of Happy Home Paradise recently, so be on the lookout for more of those videos soon. I've also been streaming the My Sims Cozy Bundle, so be on the lookout for more of those streams in the near future. I also have channel memberships called Extra Besties, where I post extra videos and do extra live stream. Right now, we're doing a playthrough of Pikmin 4, and I recently posted a video touring a bunch of Sims houses I built off camera. A lot of fun stuff going on over there, and it's another way that you can support me. And speaking of Extra Besties, I'd like to shout out Astra, Zuko, and Carly Rose for being Extra Besties. Thank you so much for your support. And thanks to all of you for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Flick and CJ, for being adorable, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye, besties.